Why do you say sorry when someone else bumps into you? Not when you're wrong, not when you've caused harm. When a stranger's shoulder clips yours in a doorway and you're the one who says it first. That's not politeness. That's something your brain has been rehearsing for years, and it runs so fast you never get a vote in it. Here's what makes this stranger than it sounds. You are not confused about who caused the collision. Some part of you knows instantly that it wasn't you. And your mouth says the word anyway before your mind has even finished processing what happened. So what is sorry actually doing if it isn't about fault? Hold that question. It matters more than you think, and the answer isn't what most people assume. Start with something you already feel, even if you've never said it out loud. You apologize for taking up space in a conversation, for asking a question in a meeting, for needing your coworker to repeat something, for crying, for not crying enough, for being 5 minutes late to something that started 10 minutes late anyway. If you added up every unnecessary sorry you've said this month, it would outnumber the actual mistakes you made by a wide margin. Most people explain this to themselves the same way. They think I'm just being polite. I'm just a considerate person. It's a small, harmless habit like clearing your throat before you speak. That explanation is comfortable. It's also incomplete, and the research on apology behavior tells a very different story about where this habit comes from and what it's quietly costing you. In 2010, psychologist Karina Schumann, then at the University of Waterloo, ran a study that's become one of the most cited pieces of research on everyday apology. She and her colleagues had participants keep a daily diary of every offense they committed or experienced over a 12-day period and log whether an apology followed. The early popular read of her findings was simple. Women apologize more than men. But when Schumann looked closer, she found something more precise and more unsettling. Men and women apologized at nearly identical rates once they judged that an offense had actually occurred. The real difference wasn't in willingness to apologize. It was in what counted as an offense in the first place. Women, on average, rated a wider range of everyday moments as offenses worth apologizing for. Sit with that for a second. The gap wasn't in how sorry people were willing to be. It was in how much of ordinary life got quietly filed under my fault. That's the first crack in the I'm just being polite story. If over-apologizing was simply good manners, it would show up evenly attached to real transgressions. Instead, it shows up attached to a wider net, a lower threshold for what counts as something you need to answer for. Psychiatrist Aaron Lazar spent years studying the psychology of apology, and in his book, On Apology, he made a distinction that reframes almost everything about this. A genuine apology, he argued, restores a specific kind of social balance. It acknowledges a real harm and repairs a real relationship. But there's a second, much quieter function apology can serve appeasement, not repair, de-escalation, a way of signaling fast that you are not a threat, that you will not push back, that the social temperature can stay low. Lazar's work suggests that once a person learns early and repeatedly that keeping the peace is safer than being right, apology stops being about what happened. It becomes a reflex aimed at other people's emotional weather, not your own conduct. That reframes the elevator moment completely. You're not tracking blame, you're tracking someone else's potential irritation and heading it off before it can fully form. Now here's where it gets harder to sit with. Linguist Deborah Tannen, known for her research on everyday conversational patterns, documented something she called ritual apology, a sorry that functions less like an admission and more like a piece of social punctuation, smoothing a moment of friction so the interaction can keep moving. Tannen found this pattern shows up disproportionately in people who were socialized to prioritize harmony over assertion often, though not only girls and women raised to read the room before they read their own needs. The apology isn't describing your inner state, it's managing someone else's, which means every time you say sorry for something that wasn't your fault, you're not just being modest. You're rehearsing a belief that your presence is slightly inconvenient by default, and it's your job to smooth that over before anyone else has to notice it. You've probably told yourself the opposite story. Something like, I'm just easygoing. I don't like conflict. It's not that deep. That story lets the habit stay invisible, filed under personality instead of pattern. But a personality trait doesn't usually have a measurable trigger and a measurable payoff. This one does. So picture the actual moment it happens. You're in a meeting and you need to ask your manager to repeat an instruction you missed because the person next to you was tapping a pen against the table. The words leave your mouth before you've chosen them. Sorry, could you say that again? Not, could you repeat that? Sorry first. You feel it land in your chest a half second after you say it. A small, tight exhale. Almost relief, like you've defused something before it could go off. Nobody in that room was upset. There was nothing to diffuse. Your body did it anyway, because somewhere along the way, it learned that going first with the apology is cheaper than risking someone else's annoyance, even imaginary annoyance, even annoyance that was never coming. That relief is the tell. You don't feel relieved after genuine remorse. Genuine remorse feels heavy, not light. What you feel in that meeting is the release of a threat response that fired for no real reason and got a reward anyway because nothing bad happened next. Your brain logs that as a win. Do it again next time. This is the part where you'd expect the story to end with willpower. Just notice the word. Just catch yourself. Just replace sorry with thank you, the way every productivity article tells you to. That advice isn't wrong exactly. It's just aimed at the wrong layer of the problem. You can swap the word out 100 times and still feel the exact same tight, apologetic flinch underneath it because the flinch was never about vocabulary. It's a nervous system prediction, running underneath language, forecasting disapproval before disapproval has even had the chance to show up. Telling that system to use different words is like repainting a smoke detector instead of checking whether there's actually a fire. And the forecasting doesn't stay confined to conversation. It's the same appeasement mechanism Lazard described, except now it's firing without anyone even present to appease a persistent, low-grade bracing for other people's reactions that shows up whether or not another person is in the room. That's why you'll catch yourself apologizing to an empty inbox before you hit send rehearsing the sorry, before the email has even left your device. There's no one there yet to disapprove of anything. Your body sends the appeasement signal anyway, aimed at a person who hasn't read the message for an offense that hasn't happened on the off chance that somewhere, somehow it might be needed. Here's the twist. Most people never see coming. The fix for over-apologizing isn't to simply stop saying the word. Willpower alone barely touches it because the habit isn't verbal. It's a threat detection system, and threat detection systems don't switch off because you decided to be more assertive this week. What actually changes the pattern is lowering the number of moments your brain flags as offenses in the first place, which is exactly the mechanism Schumann's research pointed to. The problem was never your mouth. It's your internal offense detector set too sensitive, scanning ordinary life for infractions that were never there. And this is where it gets personal because you're almost certainly living this out today in ways that have nothing to do with elevators. Maybe it's the group chat where you apologize for a slow reply that took 4 hours as if anyone else was timing you. Maybe it's the customer service call where you say sorry to the representative for a billing error that was entirely the company's mistake. Maybe it's your own body apologizing to a doctor for the symptoms you're describing. As if your pain is an imposition on their schedule. Every one of those is the same reflex wearing a different outfit. Not politeness, appeasement fired at a threat that was never real. The next time the word arrives in your mouth before you've thought about it, try one small pause. Not to suppress it, to check it. Ask yourself, in that half second, did I actually cause harm here? Or am I just trying to keep someone else comfortable? Most of the time, you'll find there's nothing to repair. Just an old signal still firing long after the danger it was built for has stopped being real. So the next time a stranger's shoulder clips yours in a doorway, notice who says sorry first. Notice that it's you. And notice that for the first time, you know exactly why.